Hi everyone, my name is Stacy Ho and welcome to She Means Business. I'm so excited because in this episode, I have my best friend from university, York University, Heather Marie Ennis, on the call with me. We've been friends for 19 years and we met because we stayed in the same floor on Tatum Hall, floor 10, which was the Gators, and I was the Gators. And why I brought Heather on this podcast for you guys to listen to, and also this YouTube video series, is because I think sometimes like you see someone and you know someone for such a long period and you've seen how they grow and how they make their dreams come true. And I've seen this through Heather, so I wanted you guys to get to know her as well. And Heather is an actor, and she owns her own theater production company called U.N.I.T, Up Your Nose and In Your Toes. I love it. She's an artistic director. And for those of you who are, really into clowns, you would love that Heather is founder and had this idea called Morro and Jasp, which are two clown sisters. And she's even traveled the world to perform, right? I'm like your biggest fan. I'm like getting people voting for you in the Canadian Comedy Award and everything. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, here is Heather Ennis.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to meet you.
So how about you? So that was my story, my short intro to you. But how about you? Why don't you tell us your journey so far?
Sure, yeah. So, it really started when I went to theater school at York, and wanting to be an actor and a writer or producer or director and not really knowing. So turns out I am kind of all of those things depending on the day or the project that I'm working on. And as a lot of people in the arts, you end up doing a lot of different things. And from out of theater school, my clown partner and I, Amy Lee, we were in the same class. We started working on a project with Byron LaViolette, who is our longtime director, and he had an idea to do a clown show. So we did this short turn at York for a student festival. We had so much fun, and then we just kept training in it and kept going. And we thought that while we were all working on our independent careers of being directors and actors, that at the same time we would start our theater company and keep making these shows for our clown duo, Morro and Jasp, so that we weren't always just waiting for somebody else to call us for an audition or for a gig. We were also creating our own thing that we enjoyed doing at the same time. And it sort of evolved from one show that was fun, so we'll do another one. And then we eventually officially became a company and got registered and opened a bank account. And so now, over 15 years later, we have over 10 full-length shows that we've written, I think 11 maybe, and we've toured them, like you said, across to Edinburgh, to Vienna, to the States, across Canada, and we've produced a lot of shows here. We're based in Toronto, Canada. So we've just kept going, and we've had to adapt at different times because of things in our lives, and we've also made a video game, and we made a book, and we just are looking for different projects to do all the time, depending on what's going on with us in the world. Simultaneously to having our own careers of doing other theater and film and TV and acting gigs and directing and being a freelance artist, essentially.
I love it. And let's say, if I can share some of my may I share some observations of you when we were at school?
Yeah.
Like when Okay, I'm a business student. So so we used to hang out all the time, and my homework was very different from your homework. And
Yeah.
I remember, because I had no idea about theater still now, like theater or like the creative arts, and I was surprised how much actual work there is. It's intense.
Yeah.
And I have
Yeah.
students here in Hong Kong, when they're saying like, I want to take theater, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, yes, Heather took theater. And it's not only acting, it's like you guys do like stage production. There was one time you were like sketching out this Shakespearean stage for like
Yeah.
4 hours, the artwork. And so what would you say, like, what is one thing that you wish everyone knew about the theater or film industry?
For me, I think I've been able to succeed in it because I do a lot of different things. And I'm also interested in doing a lot of different things. So,
Mm-hmm.
like when we were in school, I took some design courses and I took a directing course
Mm-hmm.
and production courses as well as acting.
Mm-hmm.
And some people prefer to just be an actor and focus on one thing or just be a designer. So, either way, though, one of the most important things is that you have to figure out how to be doing a lot of things at once. So you're doing, even if you're just an actor, you're working on a show perhaps right now, but you're also in the daytime submitting applications and resumes for jobs down the road, and you're making sure you're in contact with people so that you're building relationships for future, and you're always sort of planting seeds at the
Mm-hmm.
same time as working,
Mm-hmm.
which becomes a balancing act, and it becomes a also figuring out how to have your life and not let your work just be all the time, because it could easily, you could be working all the time,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't good for anyone, I don't think. I think the
Mm-hmm.
balance is good too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so but using all those different parts of the things that you're interested in, and whether that means you're doing other types of jobs at the same time and those are going to feed into your arts career,
Yes.
or you're also just like constantly sending out and reaching out to people at the
I
same
think
time.
you also took a master's in environment, didn't you?
Yeah, environmental studies.
Yeah, that's right.
I did. And I took it because maybe part of me was like, I really like school and I really am interested in this and just want to do. And I was still making theater at the same time. It was a lot of work to do them both at the same time, but just for me, and also because I was like, maybe I'll go into this field specifically, and I didn't really, but it has influenced my work. We wrote a show
Yeah,
that we
you
took
wrote
to
a show about it, and you did a school tour about it also.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for a kids show for about environmentalism and environmental education. And then I also, because part of my master's was how to use theater for social change and reaching out to different communities. So I wrote another play with the community and a bunch of First Nations members from Shawnee First Nations in Ontario, and yeah, workshopped that play and from the stories from people from that area. So it's great to use those different, like something that seems like it has nothing to do with the arts or with theater, but they're all interconnected, especially when you're a storyteller and that's part of what you do.
I also think it's like, to add on what you're saying, is like a lot of things that we go through, it's like sometimes we're like, why am I going through this? Because we can't see it. But actually, when we take the long game approach, and I think that's something that really changed my life recently, when I put on a long-term perspective. It's like, it kind of like loosens things a bit, and I'm just grateful for everything I'm going through. Like, for example, you said that when you took your environmental studies, and that also helped you, inspired you to make a play, and the different jobs that you took. The other thing I'd like all like I'd like to repeat for listeners and viewers is like, and this is what I learned from my mentor too. Sometimes we don't focus on just one project because
Mm,
it's true. Like, for example, myself, like I have to put food on the table and also pursue my passion.
yeah.
And what my mentor taught me was like, you know what, while you're putting food on the table, which is totally like, don't starve, okay? But what you could do is in the meantime, you incorporate a company and you work whenever you can. But that means like 15 years later, it might not have been a full-time thing. I don't know if it was a full-time thing for you, but then you could be like, actually, I'm the founder of so and so ABC business, and we've been around for 10 years, and you have that. So
Yeah.
instead of, and that's a mistake I think I made for sure in the past 10 years. Like I was just like doing side projects here, side projects there. But actually, if I incorporated a company maybe like 7 years ago, and then all my consultancy that I did under that company, then I could be a 7-year-old consultancy right now instead of starting now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's also sometimes when you think about like a final product,
Mm-hmm.
it feels very, for me, it feels very overwhelming. Like, oh, how do I get there? Which is actually a goal setting thing that I did learn and have been only in the past few years really like understanding more and accepting it more, because I used to want things to happen now
Yes.
and to see results now. Like, why am I not like booking a feature film right now? Or why is my play not being produced in this huge theater now? But things don't happen like that,
Mm-hmm.
except for the rare occasion, you hear these Hollywood stories or whatever, but that's not for the most people. That's not how
Mm-hmm.
things work.
Mm-hmm.
So figuring out the thing of like, oh, well, if this is something that is a long-term goal, what
Mm-hmm.
are the small steps? What do I focus on my attention on now a little bit while I am doing these other jobs to pay my
Yes.
bills, because I have to,
Yes.
and maybe will have to for a long time, but that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, what is the like checklist of manageable things that I can do one at a time? What can I do today? What can I do tomorrow? That's like a small thing. Make a list of people that I'd like to contact at some point. Then you email them one at a time, one like, so
Yeah.
that they are achievable things, as opposed to getting to the end of the year and being like, oh, well, I didn't make a feature film this year, which is a massive undertaking that can't happen. So it can't happen that fast anyways.
Yeah, they have
So
this saying of like, how do you eat an elephant? I remember because I'm vegetarian, it's like, how do you eat an elephant? It's like, no, 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 you don't. But it's just like this idiom, and this idiom like, how do you eat an elephant? It's like, it's such a disgusting idiom actually, but it's like, like bit by bit, like you just don't do that. But it's just about when you see this huge thing, you kind of like
yeah.
unpack it into smaller goals and you move towards it, which I think what you just shared is so helpful for people when they go to business, because we, of course, everybody wants to, like you say, book that feature film,
Yeah.
and everybody wants to be like on the cover, not everybody, but like whatever, you want to reach the accolade of the industry that you're in.
Yeah.
And it, if you look at it, it could be overwhelming, but it's when you unpack it and you're like, okay, what can I do today? Like you said, measurable goals,
Mm-hmm.
and actually writing those goals up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't feel like you're failing because you haven't achieved your end goal that
Yes.
might take years to achieve.
Yes.
And two, then you enjoy the journey more, because if you're not enjoying the everyday work of it and the small parts of it, then you're not going to enjoy it when you get there either, because that's what it is to be an artist, is like also the everyday work that you have to put in.
Mm-hmm.
And I still like, I also teach, not right now because of COVID, but usually I also teach theater. I do workshops in
Nice.
schools and at Young People's Theater here in Toronto. I also do therapeutic clowning in long-term care facilities, because I like doing those things also and get a different kind of joy from them, but also because they're constant things that even if I'm not working on a show or something, I have that income to rely on because I have to pay my bills, and I'm not in a position where I can just stop doing them and wait for things to come in. So
I think I'm just going to speak for a portion of people who might be on this call and agreeing with me, is like there's a portion of us out there who we really have all these dreams inside of us, but we're like, we can't do that because we don't have the money to do it. And if I choose this, I forfeit like paying for the bills. What's your point of view about that?
Yeah, I mean, I still struggle with that. I have things that I've written that I haven't been able to get funding because here we're lucky enough to be able to apply for funding for arts projects from the government grants that are available. And I haven't been able to get funding for a few short films that I've written, and I really want to make them and direct them and some of them be in and act in them. So I can't make them without the money unless I choose to save up for a really long time or have a big fundraising campaign, which is also a lot of hours of work. So it's frustrating sometimes. And it takes a lot of patience and a lot of sort of acceptance of like, okay, well, I can't do that right now. So I'm going to keep trying and slowly, hopefully, I'll be able to get there. But it's also where I'm at with those projects. And instead of comparing myself, which for a long time, and sometimes I still do, I would just be like, oh, well, that person's getting this funding and I've written that they're getting this funding. Why can't I get funding? And just feel like, you know, what am I doing wrong kind of thing. But it's also just persistence and sometimes taking that project and putting it on the shelf for a little bit while you focus on other stuff and then coming back to it and looking at it again and seeing if you can have a fresh perspective on it, because maybe it just wasn't the time for it to happen. Just maybe practically in your life.
I mean, right now, especially, I think Toronto opening up right now, or it's pretty locked down.
It's some things are opened up, like and people are filming and stuff again, but the numbers are going back up. So there's that worry that things are going to be shut down, and it's not as easy to get stuff done right now because of all the safety protocols that are necessary, and just because some things you can't do. You can't just get a bunch of people together really quickly and go in a room and film stuff. You can't.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, I think it's like there's also a season of silence, and that's okay too, right?
Yeah,
there's seasons, and there's a season of like where we're like growing, where like the seed is in the soil and we're just ready, we're just preparing ourselves, and it's so interesting.
True.
Sorry to cut in, but it's so interesting because I know you for so long, and when I see you, I do see you as an entrepreneur, but I don't know if you do.
Yeah, I don't tend to think of myself that way, even though I guess if you're a freelance artist, you are. It's just a specific industry, so things are slightly different. But I do, like you said, I am the co-artistic director of our company, U.N.I.T Productions, which produces all of our Morro Jasp shows, and I am responsible for a lot of our budgets, for applying for all of our grants, for a lot of the financial stuff specifically, and figuring out with Amy Lee, my co-partner, what's next, and you know, our plan of action, and when we're taking time off or when we're growing. So that, and also like managing just as a freelance artist everything that you have going on. So it's true. It's just interesting because I don't necessarily think of myself that way.
But you are the exact person that, I mean, I created this project for, and it's including myself too, because there's so many women out there. We have all of these talents, right? And we we don't necessarily go to formal business education. And
Yeah.
like it just happens though. And
Mhm.
nobody wants to go. I mean, sorry, maybe some people do, but I personally, I'm grateful that my dad put me in business school. I tried law, but I was like, it's not for me. Like, I love business. I'm so grateful I did it because I followed my passion. But like, if somebody told me that I'd have to study 4 years in university, I wouldn't want to go. And I
Yeah.
always tell my students, like, I only encourage studying business for students who love business and can't imagine doing anything else. Otherwise, I tell them to follow their passion and they can learn business afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, that's the same for theater,
Theater?
for anything. Like if you
Really?
don't really love it, because it's so
Mm-hmm.
much work, right?
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I wish that I had more business training, because there are definitely times where I'm like, I don't know what to do business wise. I don't know what's the best strategy. I don't know
So what do
when
you
we
do
have
in those
to,
moments? Like, are there any, what's your strategy in those moments?
yeah, I mean, we usually go to other people who have similar companies than us, or companies that are more established, who've been around longer,
Mm-hmm.
and ask people for advice
Mm-hmm.
and see what they've done and what's worked for them. And we ask a few different people, which for a very long time, for some reason, didn't occur to me. Ask for help. So I think that's a big important thing that I've learned is ask for help, find mentors.
Yes.
And if someone can't be your ongoing mentor, you can still have a meeting. Ask to take them for a coffee and say, well, what did you do when you were at this point in your career, and what, how did you solve this problem? Have you
Mm-hmm.
ever felt this way? Which has been so helpful, because sometimes just knowing that other people have gone through it too is really
Yeah,
helpful.
100%. I think it's like sometimes we don't ask because we're like, I don't want to like I don't want to bother this person.
Yeah. Or I don't
And
want to seem dumb.
yeah, or I don't want to seem dumb. I have to say, like from my experience, is like most people that I ask, they've been so forthcoming with the information.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, like sure, like we'll have a coffee, and then they get coffee. It's like, okay, what do you want to know? And I think it's because when you achieve some level of success, you kind of know like you want to pass it and pay it forward as well.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So
And when
yeah.
somebody asks, like we've had a few people that have asked us to go for coffee and asked us about what we've done. And we're always so happy to meet with them and talk with them, because people have done that for us. And also
Exactly.
it's easy to do. And like sometimes you're busier, so you schedule it when you can, but
So
it's,
do you
yeah,
have
it's
access to
okay.
that network or do you seek it? What would you say to someone who didn't have a network to
Um,
ask?
ask around for it. Oh, who do you recommend I talk to? Like,
Mm-hmm.
even that, just
Mm-hmm.
talking to people about what you're doing and what you're looking for, and saying, do you know anyone who is into this stuff? Or, and then they might eventually, someone will say, oh, you should talk to this person.
Mm-hmm.
And you call them or email them, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
don't
I
get time
think
to
it's
do
like the
that.
persistency of it.
Yeah, which is like, I've come to realize that theater and acting and film and TV, they're all about relationship building.
Mm-hmm.
And for a very long time, that to me meant, oh, I have to go to openings and I have to schmooze with people. And I'm very bad at that. I've always been very bad at it. I hate doing it. I feel like I'm faking it. I feel like I'm asking people for things and their attention, and they're not interested in me.
Mm-hmm.
They have better things to do on their opening or on somebody else's opening. Like, who am I? So I always feel like I'm imposing, and I feel like uncomfortable, and I don't know what to say in that situation. So
Mm-hmm.
haven't done that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's for sure people who are good at that, their careers can move in a different way. So I've had to find my own way. And I remember having a conversation with my friend Derek, who also had a similar experience of not wanting to do that. And he started doing something where he would invite someone over and cook dinner for them and chat with them because he really liked having one-on-one conversations. So, you know, establishing and being interested in what people do and going to see their work and their openings and inquiring what they're into and showing interest also is a way in, right? Because then they're willing to talk. Well, they're obviously hopefully excited to talk about their work. So if you are genuinely interested and want to know about it and ask about it, then that's sometimes a great way to approach someone too.
I also think that people can smell it, or like me, like my nose is so good, like I can smell things. So like it's like when people are sincere, so it means like, hey, like what's Heather doing? Oh my goodness, like why don't you come over, or like let's have a coffee, tell me all about you, like. And then, but if you felt like I was doing that to like get some leads from you, like you would feel it.
Oh yeah.
And the energy is different, you know.
Yeah. So it's also being honest. Like I've written emails to people where I'm like, hey, I'm struggling with this and I'm curious if you can talk to me about this problem and what do you recommend? And just flat out let them know what you want to talk about. Because if it's like under the guise of like wanting to be friends or wanting to ask about their work, and then secretly you want a bunch of information or you want to be in their show or you're only doing it because of that, then it's not a long-term relationship. You're just
it's like
you're not interested.
transactional.
Yeah, and that's not fun for anyone. No, but like then immediately you're like, oh, okay, well they just wanted this thing from me and now they're done. So and then I'm not, you know, if somebody does that to me, I'm not invested in continuing to help them. I see that and I'm like, okay, well that's what they wanted. They got it or they didn't. And vice versa. Like if I go into something, you can't expect someone to be investing in you long term in a situation like that. But I have my friend Anand, he's one of the best he's constantly talking about other people that he likes their work and admires their work, and he's constantly connecting people and suggesting, oh, you're interested in that, oh, you should talk to this person because they're also interested in that, oh, you're looking for a stage manager, this person's great. He always has people in his mind, just genuinely like connecting people. And I've learned so much from seeing how he does that too and experiencing it, because then too it makes you want to do that. Like he's such a talented performer and creator that anytime someone's looking for someone, I'm like, he of course I'm going to recommend him, because I also, not just because I know he does that, but because it creates this community of like wanting to do that for each other and wanting to help each other grow, and not just it being about yourself and your own success, but
that's why I feel like winning is a team sport, and also just more fun. Like it just sucks to be in a competitive space. I mean, to some extent, like competitive breeds blah 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 blah, but it's like I think when we get older, it's like people just want genuine connections. And just helping each other, and like if that person gets funding, good for them. You know, and like how can I get as good as well? So how about like through your journey of this, I would say you're an entrepreneur, and because you started your own business, and what were some key business points that you learned over the times when you're like, oh my gosh, like I just learned something new?
um, the goal setting thing was a big
Okay.
one,
Mm-hmm.
and learning how to implement that
Mm-hmm.
and breaking things into manageable goals has for sure had a huge impact on the way I sort of go through life even and my
Mm-hmm.
career.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what else? Apply for stuff.
Yeah.
Apply for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Applications, though, they take, especially in the arts, they take a lot of time and a lot of work, and it's unpaid time and work. And there's been a lot of times where I'm like, oh, should I apply for this? I don't know. And so I think I've learned how to assess better, like, oh, this one is a good fit and this one's not such a good fit. And this one I'm trying to take this square peg and put it in the round hole. Is that
Yes.
the expression?
Mm-hmm.
And I shouldn't apply for those ones, but
Mm-hmm.
learning how to really identify, like, this is specifically what I'm wanting to get money for and apply for, and this is a good fit for me because of that. So the
Mm-hmm.
more specific I get with my goals and my asks, then the easier it is for me to assess, as opposed to just going, I want money for a project.
Yes.
What project can I create to
Yes.
get money for?
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, the more clear I am with
Mm-hmm.
my applications, but just applying for as much and looking for what other resources are out there.
Mm-hmm. Like there
and
was
and
in Hong Kong, there was a COVID-19 support for around 60,000 Canadian dollars. But it's only for IT companies. And I'm like, it's so tempting to be like, what type of IT project can I do to get this money? But it's like, oh my gosh, like once you get that money, you have to do an IT project, which you might
yeah,
not even be passionate about, which might be really difficult to implement if it's not your forte. So
yeah,
like you said, like you apply for everything, and then you also like you learn and you grow.
yeah, and you realize what you want to spend your time on more specifically.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And how about for budding artists? I would to ask you a question. Like, do you have any? Can you point us to any useful resources or go-to tools for not entrepreneur, artists?
Yeah, I mean, this is also, like, globally it's going to be so different because in Canada we do have granting programs for artists in
Mm.
new creation. So it's a good way to, there's smaller micro grants. It's a good way to um, be able to create new projects.
Mm-hmm.
And also in Canada, we have something called the Fringe Festival, which is how we started our theater company. And it's a really low production cost way of starting to produce theater and learning how to produce theater
Mm-hmm.
as part of a festival that in all the major cities across Canada, they have this festival. So you could tour a
Oh,
show.
could you tour?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not right now during COVID, they were all canceled, but before you could tour a show, and that's what we did. That's how we started
Mm-hmm.
producing shows.
Mm-hmm. How'd
So
you raise money for it?
at the beginning we would just have a fundraiser. We'd throw an event and do a silent auction and go. This is how we learned to ask for stuff. We would go into businesses and give them a package and be like, this is how many people we're having at our show. We'll give you advertising if you
Oh,
are
nice.
willing to donate something or a gift certificate. And we'd put together packages for a silent auction.
Mm-hmm.
It's how we used to do it. And then we were able to, because of our resume, we were able to apply for more grants and get more funding
Mm-hmm.
and do bigger productions, which
Mm-hmm.
was sort of a building long-term goal thing.
Yeah.
But for people starting out, I think um yeah, like, if it's something that's exciting to you, do it part-time, like you're saying. Do a little bit at a time and have, if you want to be performing in lead roles in this many years, that's your goal, then break it down into, okay, taking an acting class if you
Yes.
haven't taken any, and training and meeting people in the industry, going to see theater, going to see people's films if that's what you want to do, meeting people who are out there, connecting with them, asking people for coffee, connecting with them that way.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not into like larger events and parties and stuff, which I am not, because you're awkward like me. But if it's something you're excited about and passionate about, there is a way to do it, even if you have to do it part-time and a little bit at a time, because you have to hold down jobs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I know like financial barriers are a huge thing, and it's not easy, and it does require help and support from, and people like, I also had some support and help from my family, which I was so lucky and privileged to have. So that's not everyone's situation.
Yeah.
But I know people who have for sure started their careers even in performing arts later in life, and they've been single moms at the time and decided to quit their job and go into the arts, which is that's such a hard leap and journey to take. And I don't know if I would recommend for someone to do a giant leap like that. Like for me, it feels safer to do it part-time while you're also, until you get to the point where you don't have to. But
I
yeah.
think that there's no, like, it's because we meet different people. Everyone has different stories, right?
Yeah.
And everyone has different personalities as well, and different risk, like risk levels. Some people are
Yes.
extreme risk takers, and I think that's one perception I'd like to break, is like, you don't necessarily have to be like all it, like you don't have to put you could put your life savings, but at the same time you just got to be also smart about it too. And it's okay to, like, because the definition of an entrepreneur actually is someone who takes risks for a profit. And I think what we sometimes we get really scared of is like, we think like, oh my gosh, like, does that mean I risk spending time with my children? Do I risk like my relationship? Do I risk money? That, like, and it's okay. Like, some people make that gamble and they go all in and they win. Other people, they do it part-time and they win. And it's, I think the whole thing, in my point of view, is just that you never give up.
Yeah.
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 It's persistence. And because I'm not a huge risk taker, I've been definitely more of the like, work hard and play the long game, and also be able to pay my bills and manage my life. And family stuff is just as important to me, so I'm not willing to sacrifice those other things and just go all into one.
And that's
focus.
okay. Like, for
Yeah.
me, I am the risk taker. Like, so for me, like, I sacrifice my income. I go all in a project. Like, I've done that several times over. And that's just my personality. And what I've learned is, like, one of my hard lessons that I learned around 2 years ago, or actually like last year, like 13 months ago, was like, I was all in. And like, the thing is, like, it wasn't covering the amount that I needed to support everyone, including myself.
Right.
And I had all these bills, and I had to really look at it and be like, okay, like, I have to also understand, like you said earlier, like, not everything is immediate.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I think like, yeah, I could just make this program, blah, blah, sell this, blah, blah, get a class going, blah, 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 and like, yeah, of course I could sell like 10,000, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, things take time. Things take time to nurture. That's what my mommy taught me. Like, sometimes things take time to grow. And I think my humility experience, and it's really humbling experience, was like, I was like, oh my gosh, like, I told Bernard, I was like, oh my gosh, I think I have to go back to a full-time teaching job. And he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, because I've like I had this angel in my life, this close family friend who was helping me pay rent for 3 months, and it's 2 months, and I was like, I cannot ask a third time. Like, like
Right.
I have, there's also that humility of I'm doing whatever it takes, and I don't get into the wrongness of I'm not an entrepreneur if I take a part-time job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean you're less than, it doesn't mean you're less of an art. I know people who, for their theater productions, they've invested all sorts of their personal money, and I will not. We have a separate account for our projects. If we can't raise money to make a project, we can't do it yet. We have to find another way to raise the money, because we're not going to go broke because of this work that we want to do. It doesn't, to me, it doesn't feel worth it. And it doesn't feel, I can't manage that stress of risking everything. So for me, that's the way that I've been able to, and slowly been able to do bigger and bigger projects because of that, and like partnering with other companies in order to do a bigger project, as opposed to just doing it ourselves as well.
Yeah. And just to remind you, like, let's say if I just narrow into Morro Jasp, that started in uni.
Yeah.
And that started off as like, I'm assuming like a class assignment, like make a a play and perform it and like write a screenplay, and like it just started off like that. And sometimes the creation takes a life of its own.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And it just kept going.
Yeah.
And we could have also, at some point, we could have decided this is all we want to do and just focus on making an income from our company for the three of us, and then expanding. We had this conversation at one point, and then growing our company from there. But we, maybe because of the type of artists we are, we also wanted to do our own projects and other stuff. So we decided to keep it smaller and to keep it just as a part-time thing, which has also changed our focus too. So I think it's also important, and we've learned to have these sort of like, make sure you're on the same page with people you're collaborating with, and that you understand your expectations of yourself and each other, and be able to communicate that clearly. Because if in my mind we were all aiming to do it full time and to get all these grants, and then I was like, why aren't they putting in as much work as me? Then that would end our company very quickly, because we would have, we'd be working against each other, and they'd be not working, so I'd be upset. So we've also learned how to have those and be like, I can't work on this stuff right now because of this other stuff going on, so if you want to do this project, go ahead. So we're able to navigate through that stuff too in a different way.
It sounds like open communication is really important.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And it also sounds like how I do it with my different partnerships is like there's like a foundation and a base. So it's like we all know like this is the long-term goal. We're all in it. We're in it to win it, but we're also in it with sincere intention. So even if like someone says something that's like, what? I have to bring myself back to like, it's fine. Like they have sincere intentions. We're on the same page. Like I can't react so much, but I just have to also understand like that's the perspective that they're coming from. And I like how you're saying like, okay, so the way that you talk your partners, you're like, okay, well, like I have to focus on this part of my life right now, or in this project I'm working on. I won't be so active right here right now, and then just talk about it.
Yeah. Because then when it's clear, everybody knows, like right now we started a project, an online project where we're showcasing work from other clowns across Canada. And from the beginning of the project, Amy was like, she's had to move and is renovating her house and dealing with a whole bunch of other stuff. So she clearly was like, this is how much I can do right now, and this is how much. So if that's okay with you, then how do we support the project so it can still happen? And we hired somebody else part-time to come on to help with it because of that. So then everybody's happy, right? It still moves forward. I still get to do it. She's taking care of
her stuff.
Yeah.
And I like Amy, I like Amy. I'm saying, I love Amy actually, but I'm saying I appreciate how she's just this open communication of actually, like, I want to say yes, but full disclosure, this is what I can give right now.
Yeah. And it's definitely something we've learned how to do, and we are constantly working on, because our impulse a lot of the time as artists is to say yes and to take on stuff because it's exciting, and because also at the beginning of an arts career, it does feel important to say yes to as much as possible, because you want to try different things, you want to work with different people. And then as you get more established, you're able to say no and be a bit more selective, and you're able to negotiate your time in a bit of a different way. So I think every artist has a point where they have to be like, okay, now I've taken on too much. Now I need to figure out, like, what's going to be my priority right now this year, and what am I going to say no to? And it's a great problem if that's, the problem that you're dealing with.
Your problem is like, woohoo, like I have things to turn down. Like I'm busy. Yeah, it's important. I think there's the Yes Man, which is like an awesome movie, really funny, and there's the benefit of being a yes man. And then, like you said, like there is different stages.
Yeah.
And recently what I've been exploring is this thing called Essentialism, which is like I say ironic. It's like the art of saying no. There's like the opportunities and the blessings and the possibilities with saying yes, but at the same time, not yes to everything, because sometimes when you say yes, it takes you away from where you actually want to be.
Yeah. It's true. And I've definitely experienced that. And then there's been times where, I have nothing going on right now, or not as much going on right now, so I have this free time. And it felt like I had this point last summer where I felt like I had a lot of space, because we were off for a while of Morro Jasp, because Amy had a baby and was busy taking care of her baby. And I had some of my own projects going on, but I had a lot of open space where I felt like I could take on more. So I reached out to a few people to ask how I could help them with their projects.
Nice.
Not just because I felt like I needed a little more to feel excited about it and fulfilled. So not for any reason to advance my career, but to just to offer that help or space to people. And unknowingly, it solidifies, your working relationship with that person, or the fact it helps.
It's like a byproduct.
Yeah. It is a byproduct that is positive and has. And now, like, I'm interested in working with some of those people again, and have been talking about other projects that maybe wouldn't have happened if, I didn't work with them on their show. So
yeah. And I love what you said earlier in the call. It was like planting seeds.
Yeah.
You're just like, like happiness, good, helping you. I was talking to Andrews, who I'm making another podcast with, but it's like, don't do it from the space of like, if I plant these seeds and these seeds will grow. But it's more like, I'm just going to spread as much as I can, contribute to add value as much as I can. And somehow or other, I know that something will come back to me. But don't do it because something will come back to you.
It's true, which is hard, because sometimes you just want stuff to happen, or you just want to make money doing the thing you love as opposed to these other jobs. So it is hard sometimes, and it does take a lot of hard work and patience.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes those seeds are projects that are your own ideas and you really want them to grow, and it feels like they're not growing fast enough. But yeah, I think hopefully eventually they will.
They will. They will. And it will, it always comes like 99.99% of the time it comes from like a place like you don't even expect. You're like, oh my gosh, awesome.
True, it's true. Yeah.
I want to thank you for your time, Heather, and I'd love to see
Okay.
you again, like in person whenever this COVID thing's over. One last question I have for you is like, what advice would you give to women who are wanting to start their own business?
Yeah. The advice that I would give is um, I feel like a lot of women that I know have a lot of responsibilities,
Mm-hmm.
and so it feels like really big or really hard to follow a dream or start something that they're
Mm-hmm.
excited about because their focus and their responsibilities are on these other things. So the people that I've seen who start stuff that they're excited about, they started small, but they
Yes.
started.
Yes.
So I think it's really just like, if something is inspiring to you, start small and you'll figure it out along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And along the way, you'll meet people who will give you bits of advice in that specific field or whatever, and help you
Mm-hmm.
to make it bigger and grow slowly,
Mm-hmm.
while you also are taking care of your other responsibilities. But it's just starting in a small way.
Yes, I think that's so helpful. Like, I feel like you're talking to me directly right now. The She Means Business is something that I'm starting like literally on Monday. Um, and sometimes it just creates a life on its own for me. I like just want to like really like help people, give content, and I even really haven't really thought about different ways to monetize, or even if I monetize, or like I just know like this is something in my heart that I have to do, and I'm
Yeah.
just doing it. And
Yeah.
it just comes, and I don't worry so much, even though some of my mentors like, what are you doing? I'm kind of saying like, I just have this feeling like as long as I kind of follow this dream, I follow my heart, things will just kind of work out. And like you said, just start, because there's so many things that we could say. Like I look, everyone has responsibilities, and they're honorable responsibilities, you know.
Yeah.
But we also
Yeah.
have a responsibility to ourselves to make sure
Yes.
like the dream doesn't die with us, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And too, because I know when I'm doing stuff that I'm excited about, even if I have a lot of other responsibilities to tend to, I am a happier person, and I feel like I can be better towards those other and take care of those other responsibilities in a
Mm-hmm.
better way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, start small and start do with low. It doesn't have to be huge expectations.
Mm-hmm.
It can just be to practice the thing that you are excited to practice and put it into motion for a while until
Mm-hmm.
it becomes something that has bigger expectations attached to it.
Okay, yay.
Yeah.
Yay. Heather, we've been on this call, we just love everything that you're saying. Can you help let us know how we can keep in contact with you?
Sure.
The
Well,
best way?
pardon?
The best way, like what's the best way for us to follow you, follow what you guys are doing?
Yeah. So I mean, Facebook, my own Heather Marie Ennis, but also Morro and Jasp. We have a website, morroandjasp.com. It's spelled
Mhm.
MORROANDJASP.
I'll put it down in the show notes, it'll be down there.
And yeah, we have an email. You can contact us there, or you can follow our newsletter. So that has all of our company stuff. And otherwise, yeah, Facebook has all of and Instagram has all of my personal contacts and ways of following what I do as well.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, and you've been just a super blessing. I'm so grateful to have you on this.
Thank you for having me. You're awesome.